State Representative Mike Sottile made news earlier this week when he announced that he will not seek re-election for House District 112, which covers Mount Pleasant, the Isle of Palms, and Sullivan Island. Now, Joe Bustos wants to represent the residents of that district. I speak exclusively with Joe for the special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Joe Bustos, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I must say that you are the talk of town this week.
Oh, really?
Because obviously you just announced that you're going to run for South Carolina House District 112, which covers Mount Pleasant, the Isle of Palms, and Sullivan Island.
Right.
And I know that you sent a statement which the Moochie News published, and you said this quote, "My goals would be what I understand that the residents are concerned about: conservation, the environment, transportation, overdevelopment, crowding, and education. Those are the things that I think I need to pay attention to, and those are the concerns that the residents have expressed to me. And to that end, my goals would be to represent those free municipalities in those areas at the State House." Why would you represent that particular district in Columbia?
Well, first of all, you have to live in the district in order to be elected to the district. And, that includes the old part of Mount Pleasant and Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, down Rifle Range Road, right, and out that way to Sneed Farm. And having grown up in old Mount Pleasant, not the old village, but old Mount Pleasant, and Kathy, my wife, did as well. And we spent a lot of time, obviously, in Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, and Isle of Palms. We go to Stella Maris Church, so we're over there every week. And I'm a life member of the VFW, right, on the Isle of Palms, so I'm over there. Kathy's over there right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So that's really home to me, and it's to me it's a labor of love to represent my home. And I enjoy public life. Sometimes some of the politics I don't enjoy, but I do enjoy meeting the residents and representing their views in government.
Let me back it up because I should have asked this first.
Sure.
Why Joe Bustos? Why now?
Well, I've been on town council for 13 years.
Right.
And I'm not on council now. And I saw Mike Sottile, Representative Sottile's announcement that he was not going to run. And I thought, well, one door closes, another opens.
Sure.
And I firmly believe that, and I think this is something that I should do.
And I want to reread your statement again. It says this quote, "My goals would be what I understand that the residents are concerned about: conservation, the environment, transportation, overdevelopment, crowding, and education. Those are things that I think I need to pay attention to, and those are the concerns that the residents have expressed to me."
Correct.
Where is your comprehensive plan to tackle these issues?
Well, and this is, I can go back through the years on town council, and those are the issues. Now, I wasn't on school board, but I did have a child who graduated from Wando High School. So, and we've had residents come to the town council with issues in education that they wanted town to take a stand in the education, in the realm of education. So that's a fit. And then all those other things, conservation, traffic, crowding, that is what I have worked on for the 13 years I was on town council. And I know that those similar issues impact the residents of Sullivan's Island and Isle of Palms. And really, the district in Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, and Isle of Palms are literally connected at the hip. And, when Mount Pleasant has a traffic problem, Isle of Palms has a traffic problem, and Sullivan's Island has a traffic problem. If it's crowded on the Isle of Palms, things back up into Mount Pleasant and into Sullivan's Island. So we're really very together in all those issues. And the comprehensive plan would be to carry on exactly what I've been doing at the town level, but take those concerns to the state.
And obviously, you talk about education. I got to talk to you about what happened earlier this week in Columbia with education reform. After 8 weeks of debate and over 300 amendments, the South Carolina Senate passed a Senate Bill 419, a major piece of legislation putting into place a historic comprehensive education reform. Now that process begins of reconciliating, that is, the Senate bill to the House bill that passed last session. When you look at those amendments from the Senate bill, what goes to your mind right now?
Well, obviously, everything's going to have to be reconciled. It's money. We have areas in the state that don't have good educational opportunities, and I think the Senate and the House are working very hard to try to reform that and have things so that every young person in the state of South Carolina has an opportunity for a good education. And it costs a lot. Teachers aren't paid enough, and all those things do need to be reconciled. And I was on an external review team for the State Department of Education years ago, and all these things, our children, our young people, are our investment in the future. And we can't just build ball fields and parks and expect that to equate to good education. We have to invest in our schools. We have to make sure that our young people are educated, and that when they come home or they get out of school and they go to work, that they will be productive members of society.
If you were in the House of Representatives today, what particular bill would you put forth or even introduce as far as education is concerned?
As far as education, I'd really want to try to get teachers' pay on a par where they make a living wage, that they don't have to work 2 jobs, they don't have to depend on a spouse's salary. They should be able to afford good housing, as everyone should. But I believe that especially teachers who spend so much time and have such an impact with our young people really needs to be addressed.
You talk about housing. Obviously, that's a big issue in the town of Mount Pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
How big of an issue is that in House District 112?
Well, in 112, we do have schools. We have Moultrie High School. We have Sullivan's Island School, Jenny Moore, a number of schools, Lang.
Right.
So, it's always a big issue. And it's a big issue for all the teachers that are going to those schools to teach. They need to have good, safe, clean, affordable housing. And in some cases, you can't have government start building houses. So they need to be paid a wage that is such that they can afford those things.
What is the typical wage for a teacher in House District 112?
Well, we're talking, depending whether you're starting or you've been there a while, but you're around 40 to 50,000. Beginning teachers are less.
Right.
Those have been there or more, or if they have additional duties, or if they're an administrator. And you can't. If that's all you make, you can't really live independently in Mount Pleasant. Apartments are $1,200-$1,400 a month. So, it takes a lot of money to live in Mount Pleasant. And as I said, sometimes the teachers, they have to also depend on their spouse to be a wage earner.
And let me me get back to, obviously other concerns in District 112, because I'm wondering what else are the residents concerned about when it comes to those issues in District 112?
Education, mean, or just the ones we address?
Yes, sir. Just the ones we just addressed and other issues.
Well, in conservation, obviously, we don't want any drilling offshore. We depend on the beaches. We depend on the people who fish and catch shrimp. Shem Creek, the Intracoastal Waterway, the oceanfront beaches all depend on having us conserve those resources. Traffic, that goes without saying that traffic and the roads are not good. All you have to do is drive down Rifle Range Road, which I do almost every day, going from where I live in the old part of Mount Pleasant to the airport. And you're dodging potholes. And the town of Mount Pleasant works as hard as they can to keep things patched. But some of those roads belong to the state.
Right.
And to take that concern to the State House, I think is fair. And to be at the state level working on transportation to try to improve things. Highway 41,
Yes.
big priority. We've got to work with the county. The old part of Mount Pleasant has state streets with no drainage, and that causes part of the drainage problem. Those are all things that we have to work on. And like I say, the environment. Mount Pleasant and is surrounded on three sides. It's a peninsula with water, and obviously the Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island are completely surrounded by water. So that water has to be maintained in a way that's clean and not full of trash and killing the wildlife, the fish. All those things are tied together.
You talk about those state streets, and obviously you have issues with drainage. Just where is the infrastructure?
The drainage?
Yes, sir.
Well, when the state built some of the streets in the old part of Mount Pleasant, they didn't put in any drainage. And the town now is working to find money to put drainage in. The islands have flooding problems, and that's something we have to work on. And another thing is not so much at Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, but when we're talking about drainage and the environment, there are a lot of donut holes in the town of Mount Pleasant, which are on septic tanks. And when it rains or we have a severe storm or they overflow, that flows into the marshes. And the town would like to annex those areas into the town of Mount Pleasant and get them on sewer, so that we wouldn't have that whole issue with septic tanks. But they can't because of the antiquated annexation laws.
What would it take to change that?
A lot of work. A lot of work. And I'm not so naive as to think that Joe Bustos is going to walk through the front of the State House and wave a magic wand and things are going to change. It's going to take work, and it's going to take representing the views of the citizens of District 112 and convincing other legislators of the appropriateness of those ideas, and then moving it forward. It was just like impact fees, permit allocation, short-term rentals, all those things. The residents told me this is what we think, and I took those thoughts and transformed them into action, and I got those things done in the town of Mount Pleasant. And they're still working. They're there. Reducing the amount of impervious surface on lots
Oh, yeah.
from where it was to 40%, and that's starting to fix a little bit of the flooding, but we still need to have storm drains.
How many storm drains should be added to House District 112?
Well, in the old part of Mount Pleasant, there's about $10 million worth. So that's pretty sizable. And I know the other, and storm drainage is something that is worked on. It's a constant thing because when it's fixed and it gets older, it needs to be repaired, needs to be replaced. And, stormwater fees are something that's charged, but in order to protect the residences and the values of those residences, in this area, the low country, storm drains or drainage needs to be one of the top priorities.
You talked earlier about Sullivan's Island. I interviewed Mayor Pat O'Neill a couple of months ago about the concerns about Dominion Energy trying to cut down some trees over there, obviously for certain reasons. How would you convince Dominion Energy to just stop right now?
Well, if you remember, Mount Pleasant, at my request, and I went to the county administrator and the mayor, and the staff went out and looked and said, you're not doing it according to the way you said you were going to do it, and they were given a stop work order. And they had to stop until they had an arborist on site. I don't know if Sullivan's Island is doing that, or Isle of Palms, but Dominion Energy needs to sit down with the town of Mount Pleasant, the town of Sullivan's Island, and Isle of Palms, and they need to have a meeting of the minds on how they're going to prune these trees. On Sullivan's Island, I think it was, they cut down, I want to say 90, something like that. And I don't know the exact number, but you see all the time trees that have been, in my mind, butchered, not pruned, but butchered. And maybe they have to do it a little more often rather than doing it so severely that it's supposed to last 5 years.
5 years. And you also said this too, quote, to us, this is home. And it just seems to me to be a natural fit. And you always want to do what's best for your home. What is the quality of life in House District 112 right now?
Well, I'd say the quality of life in House District 112 is pretty good right now, but it can always be better. You can always address the concerns of the residents, and that's what creates that quality of life. At first, feeling safe, feeling protected if you have a fire. So making sure that trash is picked up and drainage works adequately. All those things add up. And then, you provide for the recreation of the residents. And when they have all those things working for them, I think quality of life is pretty good. I think Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, and Mount Pleasant are some of the safest municipalities in the state of South Carolina. Obviously, when the summer crowds hit, there are some shenanigans that go on. That's inevitable. But I think the police departments and the fire departments do a good job of staying ahead of crowds and people and all those things. And I think the councils do a good job of determining what they want their communities to be, for their residents. And I think they're doing a good job with that.
You also said this too, quote, it's a natural progression based on the knowledge I have with municipal government to go to state government. And I believe the knowledge that I would take to the state house will be invaluable to both the state and the municipalities. What other knowledge do you have about state government?
Well, state government mandates a lot of things to the towns.
Okay.
And I have been on town council, as I said, for 13 years. I've watched these things come down.
Right.
I've watched some of the preemptions that have happened that come down to the town. I've seen the local fund money not be received by the town when it was supposed to be, and those things are getting better. And every year we would go to Columbia and talk to our legislative delegation. So, that's not foreign to me. And the 13 years I was on council, we went and we spoke to them, and we tried to get them to see our position. And certainly they told us what their positions were, and we tried to meet somewhere in the middle. I'm sure the state would love to give us everything we need or want in the municipalities, but sometimes they can't. And sometimes the municipalities need to say, we need to have the ability, let's say, to use accommodations tax or hospitality tax in a way that is not as limited as it is now. And I've been on the town end of that,
Right.
and I've seen, our arguments,
Sure.
and I think I can represent the view of municipalities in the State House. I think that experience will be good when bills come up. I can say, well, listen, I was in town government, municipal government, for a number of years, and this is how it's going to impact the municipalities if we do this. And so I'm taking a view. I've been on the front line, so to speak, in the municipalities, and now to take that knowledge to the state, and when they have bills that come up, I can represent those ideas where it might interfere with the municipality.
And you also said this too, quote, I'm a conservative, and I really honed some of my conservative views in Mount Pleasant and tried to husband the taxpayers' money and make sure that the taxpayers receive a good return on their tax money. I never voted for residential property tax increases, and I think that's important. Let me ask you this first. What are the typical residential taxes in House District 112?
Well, and here again,
Okay.
I know what Mount Pleasant is. Sullivan's Island and Isle of Palms determine what their taxes are going to be. Those are separate councils, and that's an issue, home rule.
Oh yeah.
That it needs to be paid attention to, because municipalities are charged with taking care of, and that local government, that local council, they are setting the left and right limits and how they want their town to be, their community. Sullivan's Island has what their vision is for their town. Isle of Palms has what their vision is, and Mount Pleasant has theirs. So and the state shouldn't be coming down saying you need to do this with taxes, with your residential taxes, or you need to do that. I think that's a local issue in the municipalities for them to determine their taxes. In Mount Pleasant, they're very low.
Okay.
They are low. As a matter of fact, for a house to pay for all the services that the town provides to a family in a house, that house has to be valued at $800,000. Now, there are a lot of houses in Mount Pleasant that are not $800,000. Of course, there are a number that are more than that, but some houses just don't pay for all that they receive from the town of Mount Pleasant. But that's a town of Mount Pleasant issue.
Okay.
That's their part of home rule to decide what those taxes are going to be.
How else would you change home rules when you get up to Columbia?
Well, I think we need to respect home rule. we need to, there shouldn't be unfunded mandates. We get those from, Shem Creek was one that came from the federal level, and they've got to clean that up. So, or work on, and they are working on cleaning Shem Creek, but that was an unfunded mandate that came down. Home rule, we just need to, and I'm speaking now as if I were already at the state, but if I were on the state tomorrow at the legislature, I would say that we need to respect how the individual municipalities run their governments.
I know, obviously, you just mentioned this, and we all know and it's well documented that you spent 13 years on Mount Pleasant Town Council. Mm-hmm. But if we were to look back at your voting record, what should we look at?
I think for all 13 years, that people should look at what I did and what I said I would do. And what I said I would do, I did. And all 13 years, I spent time, and I was very involved with and believed in managing growth. And I think that if anyone looked at my record, they'd say, he said he was going to try to find ways to manage growth, and he did.
How do you manage smart growth in House District 112?
Smart growth, smart growth has a lot of definitions.
Okay.
I think that here again, my experiences with Mount Pleasant,
sure.
We wanted to have transportation, schools, stores in place to support the population. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases, we had population before we had schools. In some cases, we had population before we had sufficient transportation to get around in Mount Pleasant, sure. Which impacted Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island, and we know it did. And Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, I think they elect their council members, and their council members represent their residents' views. And if they don't represent them, they won't get elected again. But I think in Mount Pleasant, and I think across the district, some things like schools, there should be ample classroom space if you're going to have a new development. I think you should have ample streets and traffic signals before you have big development.
Obviously, last year, the voters said no to you, mm-hmm. as far as you being reelected. Mm-hmm. Why do you think people will give you a second chance this time in the State House?
Because I didn't work hard enough. Even with all those things I did, I feel that I didn't work hard enough. I think they wanted more from me, and and then during the election season, I just did not work hard enough. I can't say that they didn't like me or this person did that or whatever. I look at it as I did not work hard enough.
What would you do on day one if you were elected to the State House?
Well, obviously, on day one, I'm going to have to go around and I'm going to have to meet the folks who would be my peers.
Sure.
And I would have to do a lot of studying. And, like anything, it's going to take a while to get up to speed because they have policies and procedures that I'm sure I don't know. And I'd have to learn that. Right now, I'm calling, this last week, I called the council members on Sullivan's Island, and I've talked to several council members. I've talked to some past council members, and next week I'm going to call Isle Palms.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to Mount Pleasant and spoken with the administrators and some of the elected people. And I'm asking them, I'm saying, if you have suggestions, if you have ideas, please let me know. I'm going to be your representative in the State House. I need to know what it is you see that we could do to help you. Tell me what it is you think is being done that is counterproductive to you here in this House district.
Joe Bustos, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Full House.
Well, thank you for having me. And, I look forward to this because, as I said, I enjoy representing the people of Mount Pleasant, and I would love to have the opportunity to represent the residents of Sullivan's Island and Isle of Palms. And I look forward to meeting them and hearing what they have to say and representing their views.
And I hope to have you back on as many times as I can prior to the primary.
Well, good. Just let me know.
Okay, definitely will. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah.